Welcome, everyone, to the latest edition of T3 Zoom Cafe, unscripted discussions around challenges and opportunities for those of us that are pursuing a 2 Timothy 2:2 ministry of multiplication. This year, I am interviewing different staff members that have had and are having fruitful multiplication ministries. And it's been really rich. And I hope you can catch some of the videos of those. It's on my website, craigperro.org. All of our T3 Zoom cafes, as well as the webinars, are there. We had Linus Morris in January talk about Divine Expedition. Phil Graff was part of that. Then we had Jim Bow and Richard Spencer in March talking about their ministry. And today, of course, we have Tom Shedd. We've got Carl Green coming up, Joel Madsen, Abby, and Doug Vinay. And then to kind of put a cherry on top of this year, we're going to be having a workshop right after the 2027 leadership gathering from Saturday afternoon to Sunday afternoon to Monday afternoon. I'm asking all of the presenters to be there, and I hope at least most of them will be there. And we'll be talking about kind of best practices. I have been so surprised and encouraged at the variety of approaches to multiplication that folks at GTN are using. And so anyway, I hope you can come. We'll be laying out some roadmaps that different folks can use depending on the way they're wired and what their curriculum is and so on. So anyway, February 21 and 22, Train the Trainers, Proven Practices. All right, great. Tom Shedd, welcome. Tom and I have become friends over the last few years, and I'm just delighted that you're willing to be a part of this morning. Tom, tell us a little bit. You've been with GTN since when?
Since 2015, so I'm in my 11th year with GTN right now. Um,
And tell us
I
a little bit about what you did before then.
okay. I did 25 years of music ministry in large churches on the West Coast, and then I was a pastor for 17 years, preaching pastor. And then in 2014, I prayed in the middle of the night in the back of my house, Lord, where in the world could I be most effective given my education, my experience, my giftedness? And the person that I thought of to talk to was Linus, because I had known him back in the early days of my music ministry. Actually, I worked in Calvary Church Pacific Palisades. He lived in the Palisades, and his kids were in my youth group and
Oh, wow.
choirs and everything. So, and I played basketball with Linus on Saturday morning. So I knew him pretty well, but I hadn't seen him in, 30, 40 years. So, I shared with my wife the next morning, and she said, "Well, you need to talk to somebody. Why don't you talk to Linus?" And I thought, well, there's confirmation right there. So I did. I said, Linus, if you're ever in Los Angeles, I don't know where in the world you are now. Last I heard you were in Europe. I'd love to talk with you. And he said, Tom, I live in the Palisades still. Come on over for lunch. And so I did. And I met him for lunch. And then he connected me with Paul Madsen, and I got started with GTN in September 2015. I went, the reason this is significant is that I went with Linus to Brazil 3 times at the beginning of my time with GTN. So I was exposed to his methodology from the very beginning. And then I took a trip with Bob Edmondson to the Philippines, and that's where I was exposed to Timothy leadership training. And I came back to the US and took a couple more of the courses and became certified as an advanced trainer. So then, also, my area of specialization is music and worship arts ministry. And so I developed a curriculum called Music and Worship Arts Training, and it follows the TLT model of 6 courses. Each course is 18 hours. And so you do it over 3 days, 6 hours a day for 3 days. And I've done that successfully in a couple of different countries. And then I also developed another curriculum called Understanding the Bible, which is a Bible survey. And it just allows me to discuss all of my heresies so that I have topics spread throughout the training. It's 6 courses, also, again, the same format. So that the first course are the history books, Genesis through Esther, then the poetry books, then the prophets, then Gospels and Acts, then letters of Paul, then non-Pauline letters and Revelation. So, and I've had a couple of countries go through that as well. So we're now developing teams of trainers in each country where people who
Tom,
have,
let me slow you down here.
yep.
What are the countries that you're currently working in?
When I started, I did a lot in Southeast Asia and Brazil, and now I'm really focused on Central and East Africa. So I'm in Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, Zambia, and Malawi. And so uh, we have teams in each of those.
Tom, why don't you share? I think this is one of the most fascinating things of what you do. Share how you begin in a region or in a city. What do you look for? What are the criteria? And then how what's your organizational approach? I think this is fascinating.
When I began with GTN, I was begging for places to go to. Now it's the opposite. So I'm really spread out, too spread out, but it's working out okay. I always respond to an invitation. So somebody has to invite me to come to their area. And then I ask that person if they will function as the city director. And then I have a job description essentially for what that entails. And basically, they have to form an organizing committee, which then forms a budget, and then they have to determine a fee for the training for each of the participants. And I'll talk about that more later. But to me, that is really important that that gets done because in multiplication, the biggest obstruction is finance. And how are these people going to pay for the trainings and who's going to pay for them and all of that? So I found that the best way for me, and it may not work for everybody else, but the best way for me is to make sure that there is a fee, and that fee covers primarily the printing of manuals and food. They don't pay for any of my expenses nor of my team. So I now travel with a team as much as I possibly can. I don't really travel with GTN staff anymore. I mean, they're welcome to come if they want, but I don't go looking for people because I prefer to travel with country staff. So I have a country director and an administrative assistant for each country. And then we have advanced trainers now in almost all of the countries, and I want them to co-present with me. And I enjoy the companionship a lot. It really makes a difference for me personally, and it gives me an opportunity to give them training experience, and then I get to watch them and give them feedback and that sort of thing. So that is my model currently.
That's great. Thank you. Um, when you're beginning, you get the invitation. How do you discern that this is the right partner? Just because you have an invitation doesn't necessarily mean
Yeah,
they're the right partner.
yeah.
What are their motivations, and what process do you go through to discern that yes, I want to invest in this person and this team?
Yeah, that's a very good question because I got burned a number of times from having young men be my city
Hmm.
directors. That doesn't work because they don't have the network of connections, nor do they have the, I want to say, the leverage that to mobilize effectively. And so I have now learned that it's probably smarter that I look for an older man and now older women. I've got 3 city directors who are women now, and they do a fabulous job because these are older women who have a lot of credibility, not only in their denomination but also in their community, and they are pastors themselves, and they get the work done. And see, that's the big thing. You don't want to have somebody who is the kind of pastor who attends committees and then they don't do any work. That just
Mhm.
is a killer. And, there are disappointments. There are city directors who bomb and who, I almost now can guarantee that one of the trainings will be canceled when I set up a trip. Like this last one, I just got back Wednesday and I was in Tanzania, Kenya, and Uganda. I had 6 trainings scheduled, and actually 2 of them got canceled, but we were able to reschedule and start a new training in a new area because my country directors are really good. And they
Mhm.
basically took over and then they organized and mobilized. And we had a great training, as a matter of fact. So the problem in with the 2 trainings that didn't happen was that my city director was a young guy and he just didn't do it. He just did not do the work, even though I had been working with him for months trying to make sure everything was happening. And we were anyway. So we've got a training scheduled in that area again, and he will still be a part of it, but he won't be the head guy. So
Yeah, do you yeah, t talk a little bit more. I think this is one of the real strengths of your approach is setting up an organizing committee, if you will, and
yeah.
leadership team. But you don't at the front end, you don't really know these people. Is there do you have a kind of a probation period where we're testing the waters? What does that look
Well,
like?
see, it's a little bit different now because I have a country director in every
Mm,
country. And so now that job really falls to the country director because generally speaking, they know that person. They know who these city directors are personally. And so much more of the responsibility falls to the country director now to make sure that this person is doing what they're supposed to be doing and all of that. And the problem I had on my last trip is that my country director did not know this young man. And I had done multiple trainings with him before. And, he did okay. They weren't great, but he did okay. But this time he dropped the ball because he's a seminary student and he was taking courses and exams and all of that. And he just didn't get the work done.
all right. Tom, what do you do to encourage or ensure multiplication of the training? It doesn't happen automatically.
No.
What are you doing to kind of fuel that?
Well, what we're doing now is to really emphasize the team concept. So now, for instance, we have Team Uganda, we have Team Tanzania, we have Team Zambia, where we're trying to build in this idea that these trainers are a part of a team. And in Burundi, I have a really great city director in Bujumbura, and I've worked with him now a long time, and he is a man of vision. So basically, he just took over. So we had 11 advanced trainers certificates. We issued 11. So we have a team now of 11 trainers. And he is supervising that team, and he's already broken the team up into 4 groups and started 4 new trainings. So
Mm,
really, it's the ball is in his court now. And I am not interested at all in building a pyramid where I'm at the top and everybody else, is underneath me. Uh-uh. They are essentially, I want them to be autonomous. I want them to feel like they're on their own. Now, I'm available to help and I'm going to train. I was just talking with Craig before we started that we have a couple of things that we're planning. One is a conference for my country directors and administrative assistants from each of the countries. And then that'll happen in July. And then we're also now talking about doing a city director conference for Uganda, where we bring all of the city directors, not just mine, but the second generation city directors. In other words, our trainers are starting new trainings in other places. And so we want those city directors to join us
mm.
as well. And that will be in Entebbe. And we're going to try to do that at the end of my trip in July. Sorry,
Wow.
January next year. Yeah.
So you're really investing in your country and city directors in particular.
Yeah, and I think my role is going to be changing. I'm probably going to be doing less training myself and more mentoring the teams in each country over the next 5 years. I'm doing a lot of training right now, but I don't need to be doing as much because now I have trainers who can do what I do. So, which is fabulous. That's what I want.
Amen. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You mentioned advanced trainers.
Yeah.
How does one become an advanced trainer?
With all three curricula that I lead, I have the same requirement, and that is that the people have to complete all 6 courses of the curriculum, and they have to submit action plans and action plan reports for each course. And once they complete that, then they are eligible to receive an advanced trainer certificate, which then allows them to be certified in that curriculum to be able to train others. And again, I'm using the model from Timothy Leadership Training. I have no connection with them other than I use their curriculum, but that's what they require. And it seemed wise. So that's what I'm requiring with the other 2 curricula that I lead.
Yeah, unpack that a little bit. By the way, I'm going to ask this question and then get an answer from Tom, and then throw it open to you all to see what questions you have as well. Um, yeah, tell us a little bit more about the accountability that is kind of built into your training. You mentioned uh, setting goals and reporting on those goals. Unpack that a
Yeah.
little bit for us.
Well, each course requires at the end that the participant submit an action plan. And basically, an action plan just answers 2 questions from the material of the course. What does God want me to do? And then how does he want me to do it? So the first is to establish the goals or the vision. And then the second is to list the steps that are necessary to accomplish that. What do I actually have to do? So, so that's the requirement for each course that they submit that. And really the next step falls to the city directors to sort of to help manage the group, the team from that area. So we're relying pretty heavily on those city directors. And again, that is where having a national director in each country has been incredibly helpful because they either already know those people or they get to know those people. And then they can help facilitate that connection and, make sure they're doing what we're hoping that they're doing. So then I don't have to do all of that.
Right.
Yeah. So I think, like I said, my job is going to be more of a mentoring the leadership. Uh, but and you all have to understand, I'm not following any playbook here. I'm making this up as I go. So understand that I'm not saying this is the way you all ought to do it because I really, seriously, that's what I enjoy about GTN. They looked for people who have an entrepreneurial spirit that they want to, they're not afraid to start things and, venture out. And I like that because that's kind of the way I am. When I was doing music ministry, we wrote our own programs and produced them and directed them and all that stuff. So I like that. And I don't want somebody hanging over my shoulder telling me, what I'm doing wrong. But on the other hand, like I said, I'm making this up as I go. So I'm not sure that this is the best way to do it. It's just the way I'm doing it.
Okay, great. What questions y'all have for Tom?
I have a couple questions. One, when you're with specifically with Timothy leadership training, the certification or whatever comes from the US.
Yes.
And um, are you submitting that information for the people in Africa to the US office, or they are going directly to the Timothy leadership training and submitting their stuff?
Yeah, good question, Francie. By the way, nice to see you again. Haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah. Mhm.
Um, at this point, it comes through me because they don't know how to do it well. So right now we're using Google Forms for registration, and that is a process that needs education, and they have to have the ability to do it. And Google Forms generates Google Sheets, which is a spreadsheet where all of the information is brought together in one place so that I don't have to retype anything. You get the participants to do all the typing and filling in all the information. Well, they don't, because they don't have computers, they don't have smartphones. And so what ends up happening is usually my administrative assistant for that country ends up helping them a lot to get all of the information put in. But the advantage is once it's in the Google spreadsheet, then it's just cut and paste to put it into the Timothy Leadership Training spreadsheet, which is required. You have to submit that, and they look at it very, very closely before they will award the certificates. And I don't award the certificates. They come from TLT. And so all that information has to be there. So, yes, I want them to do it. Are they able to do it? We're working on it. And in fact, when I meet with my country directors in July, that's what we're going to talk about. One of the things we're going to talk about is how do you do this? And so then it will fall to them to supervise those in their country so that I don't have to do it all. But at this point, yeah, most of it comes through me. I'm trying to get away from that though.
Are you requiring the country directors to have a computer?
Do I require it? Well, they all do.
Okay.
When I select a country director, I have criteria, and the criteria is they've got to be smart, and they've got to be connected, both technologically and in terms of people. So, for instance, I have a new country director for Kenya, and not only is he a pastor, but he's a high government official, and so he is very expert in the technology, as well as the connections with pastors and all of that. So I would have to say I'm pretty selective in who I ask to be my country director, and that's also true of administrative assistants as well. I need people who know what they're doing and can really help. So
Yeah.
that does
It,
bring up one project though that we just started, and that's called Computers for Pastors. Apple just came out with a new laptop called Neo, which is the price point is $499 for their lowest model, $100 more if you get more memory. But that is within striking distance of an African pastor if they can get some financial assistance. So we've done a program in the past where we offer matching grant for equipment, and it was called the Shed African Internet Sustainability Fund. And we had some people contribute to that. And the purpose was to help them get routers, especially to get connected to the internet. A couple of them needed computers, so we helped them get computers. But now I'm working with Apple here locally in Torrance. I've met with the business people and I've set up a business account to try to get Apple to contribute to this, to see if they have a philanthropy department where they might offer some financial incentive. Problem is, how do you get the machines to Africa? And it looks like we have to work through local distributors in each country. And so anyway, I presented the concept on my last trip. A lot of guys were interested, and so we're just getting started with that.
Nancy, did you have a follow-up?
I was uh, I was gonna just make an observation that the way that you have designed this is a lot of personal input, um, and mistakes, restarting over at the beginning until you find the right people,
Yeah,
to get, in the boat, who are going to be trustworthy, that you can and understand the multiplication principle and things like that.
yeah.
um then so it's just it's a time, just working through time to see how
Yeah.
things will pan out. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Francie, I've had to change country directors a couple of times where I did not have the right person in place. And so I had to make a change. And that was very difficult,
Mm.
but it was important to do that. The person just wasn't doing the job, and I needed to find someone else who would be able to do it better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tom,
Any
you
other
mentioned
questions? Yeah, Richard.
3 curriculums. I'm familiar with the Timothy leadership because
Mhm.
I know Bob Edmondson does that,
Yeah.
and I've taught with him. What are the other 2 curriculums? I
Music
don't
and
remember you mentioning that. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. One is music and worship arts training, which
Okay.
is also 6 courses. Each course is 18 hours, just like TLT. And then the third one is understanding the Bible. And that's
Okay.
also 6 courses, same format. So I wrote both of those in
Okay.
response to needs. My undergrad degree is in music education, and then I did a master's program in church music before I went to seminary and did the MDiv.
Yeah.
And again, I never expected to be a preaching pastor. I just wanted to be the best music pastor I could be. So that's my area of
Okay.
specialization. And then understanding the Bible came about because one of my guys in Tanzania said, "Hey, what our pastors really need is to study the Bible." And in the 3 hour car ride to the airport, uh, the format of it just became really obvious as to how to do it, and then I just had to write it. So,
When you teach, because of your musical background, do you ever break out in song? Yeah.
well, I don't sing very well anymore. I've got some physical issues. In fact, Craig, one of the calls that I just took was from my endocrinologist. I'm having
Whoa. Wow.
endoscopy
Mm,
coming up here to try to
Hmm.
figure out what's going on.
mm.
But I still play. I don't carry my instruments because they're just too
Yeah,
fragile and expensive.
exactly.
I tried that on one trip and it just was
Yeah.
not good. So, but thank you for asking. Yeah.
Yeah.
Other questions?
Do you do all 3 of those curriculums eventually at the same place through the same like national coordinator? Yeah.
Well, that was not the intent, but it has been happening in a couple of
Okay.
places, especially as they finish one curriculum. Then they will say, well, can we now do this other one?
What is your preferred
Well,
order of those 3 curriculums?
um, my preferred order is music and worship arts first because that's my area of expertise. Okay.
Okay.
TLT is good because you can do it anywhere, and it's not dependent upon prior knowledge. So someone does not have to have a seminary degree or even a Bible school degree to be able to do that curriculum. It's very,
Mhm.
very practical. Understanding the Bible is just fun because you're talking about. I love talking about the history, and I use walk through the Bible in the first 3 courses, Old Testament. I learned that when I was like 20. And I tell you, it is a phenomenal tool to help people get the big picture. And then I wrote one for the book of Acts that I use for the 3 New Testament courses. I call it Accent. And it walks through the book of Acts. And that seems to be well received as well.
Okay.
Great. Tom, share with us just what kind of success have you seen, especially on the multiplication front?
Well, in Uganda is where we're seeing the most success at the moment because we've got now something like 50 advanced trainers, and a number of them are starting new trainings in locations. Opio George is one of them. He's my country director. He's got I think 3 different trainings just in his city of Tororo with different groups. And then we have one group that did all of their courses online during COVID. And so then I went out there and awarded certificates. And now they have started trainings in a couple of other places. And we found that to be true in a number of places in Uganda, which is why we're going to try to do this city directors mini conference in January to try to bring them all up to speed and on board. The biggest problem, as I said at the very beginning, is financial. So they all get excited. Oh boy, I can't wait to do this. I'm going to go out. Now who's going to pay for it? And so, you know, I am Mzungu, whether I want to be or not. Mzungu is the Swahili word for white man, but it carries so much more meaning than that. It is the guy who pays for everything. And that is the expectation that the white man is going to pay for everything. And so that's why I have a fee. One of the reasons, because I want them to have ownership in the experience. And I do not want to support colonialism. I do not want them to become dependent upon foreign money. I want them to become independent, self-sustaining, and autonomous. So the only way to do that that I have found is to make sure that there is a fee associated with the training. And the reason for that is that when they go out to do training, I want them to have that same methodology. And so that they can say, hey, look, I had to pay a fee and I was with Mzungu. And so hopefully then that will kind of eliminate this dependency upon foreign money, which I personally do not think is healthy for the church in Africa to become so dependent of Western money. They need to be self-sustaining. So my model is to try to develop that because otherwise, I mean, I'm not going to pay for all of that, for heaven's sakes. In every country where I'm in, I'm going to pay for all of the trainers to do their training.
So
No way.
Tom, do you pay for any of the second generation training expenses?
No, I don't. None. I require them to develop their own budget, like I said from the beginning. Now, I do encourage in that budget for them to consider the costs of the trainer. But I also encourage the trainers to develop their own financial ministry partner network, just like I have to. I have to raise support in order to do this ministry. I encourage them to do that. And I have taught kind of a mini SRS course. And then I also encouraged 6 of our Uganda team to attend the Via Generosity, which used to be SRS, in Kampala. And they did. They went. And so then I had met with them again about 3 or 4 months later. And I said, how did it go? Did you guys raise funds? And they all said, nope, it didn't work for them. So, so that is an ongoing problem and is one of the biggest restrictions to the second and third generation training is who pays for it. And again, so much of the culture is Mzungu dependent. I mean, one time we were driving across country and we stopped, to get some fruit or something like that at the roadside. And they saw that the car had Mzungu in it. And so they all expected I was going to pay for all their lunches, just the people of the city, because I was in the car. I thought, you're out of your mind. I'm not going to pay for lunch for everybody. And, but
you do,
so
Tom, you do pay some stipends. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
I do. Um, Mary Lou and I have decided that we're helping to support a few people, country director and a couple of administrative assistants, but not all of them. Okay. Now, someday, would we be able to do that? That would be wonderful. But we do support a couple. And then I do pay for the expenses of those who travel with me. So I pay for their transportation, their hotels, their meals, all of that. But I do not pay for city directors, or I don't even pay for translators because there's always somebody there who can translate in my experience. And sometimes it surprises you. On this last trip, this translator canceled the day before. So we started the meeting and there was this young guy in the back row and somebody said, hey, why don't you go out and translate? Turned out he was phenomenal and he'd never translated before, but his English was really good. And he and I set up a rhythm. It was fabulous. But I don't pay any of those people.
Mm-hmm.
But we do offer some support, but that is not through my budget. That is just Mary Lou and I choosing to give support to a couple of these people.
What are you thinking? I mean, Tom Shedd isn't going to be training forever. In terms of sustainability,
Yeah.
how have you thought about that going forward?
Well, like I said, I think my role changes over the next 5 years, and assuming my health is good to be able to continue on, and so far I'm doing okay. Um, but I'm seeing that I need to spend the time with leaders more than I need to be doing the training. Now, a lot of people can do TLT training, so I probably will move out of that pretty quickly. I don't have as many people who can do the other two curricula, although we do now have advanced trainers in both curricula in multiple countries. The problem is, how do I get those people to the countries that need the training if I'm not going to do it? And then what would be the expenses involved with that, and who pays for it, and all of that stuff. So, like I said, I'm making this up as I go. I'm not following some template.
Other questions?
What's your list of um, things that you require when you're selecting, like a city director or a country director? You mentioned that you have some criteria.
Well, for the country director, obviously a spiritual maturity, connectedness with other pastors in the country. They have to have a pretty good network. They have to be technologically advanced enough to be able to communicate with me and to take care of administrative responsibilities. Um, and then it's really helpful if they like to laugh. All of my country directors like to laugh. And when we spend time together, we have so much fun. It is just
Mm.
wonderful. So that's a really important part of it, that for me personally, that companionship aspect just makes the traveling so much better. On my last trip, I started out where I had to fly to from Dar es Salaam to Kigoma in Tanzania, and I financially was not able to bring my country director with me, so I had to do all the teaching myself, and plus I didn't have the companionship. It was a drag. I mean, the people were great, and we had a wonderful time, and all of that. But I did miss that aspect of it. So last year I overspent. And part of the reason was because one of my major donors, I think, had a credit card thing and their contribution wasn't coming through and whatever. So I had to cut back on my expenditures, especially on the first trip this year. And one of the things I was not able to do was to take people with me when I traveled to certain places. And I really missed that. So I've been praying the Lord will give us enough resources so that I'll be able to take people with me. And again, in some countries, we pick up the advanced trainers that are already in that country, and then they also co-present.
Tom, just listening to you, thinking out loud, I wonder if it would make sense for you to be looking for a younger GTN guy that could come along with you and be your Tom Shed number 2 going forward. Just
Yeah.
because the sustaining the country directors, city directors is such a central element to your training. Anyway, just a thought.
Well, that's a very good thought. It would need to be someone who has a pretty good music education,
Hmm.
because to teach that music and worship arts training, um, they would have to have education and experience
Right.
doing music and worship arts ministry. It's a good suggestion. I don't know a lot of people in GTN who have that background.
Hmm.
Now, that said, I am also connected with an organization called Artists in Christian Testimony International, that is an arts oriented organization like GTN. And they're in Nashville. And I have come to know the president really well. And actually, that might be the place to get somebody to do that. Craig, that's a great idea. I've never thought of that before.
Great.
Interesting. Interesting.
Are for your city meetings or coordinator meetings that you have coming up
Mhm.
that you mentioned, are you doing those online?
No, we're going to do them. The country directors, I'm bringing them all to Dar es Salaam in July, and then
Okay.
we're going to do. We've never tried this before, but we're going to bring all of the city directors of Uganda to Entebbe to do a little mini 2-day mini conference there. So no, those are both going to be live because one of the things we did one uh, last year and it was really successful, but it was only with 3 countries. And we did it in Kenya. I brought my country directors from Tanzania and Uganda to meet with me in Kenya. And we had the best time just
Mm,
talking and interacting and eating
mm,
together and, just having fun. And it was fabulous, just fabulous. And so Craig has been encouraging me to do this thing with all of my country directors, and we're going to give it a shot. I mean, it's expensive as heck to do. And I have asked the Lord for 3 very large gifts in order to help finance this. One has come through, and half of the second one has come through. So I'm still praying. But if the financing comes through, then if this is something I want to continue every year, and I've already given it a very uh, gross name. It's called the Shed International Leadership Conference. We're calling it Silk. And so this is going to be Silk 2 this year.
Mm-hmm.
And next year, we're wondering how much should we expand it to include other people than just the my national directors and administrative assistants. Should we expand it to include city directors? What about advanced trainers? How big do we want this to get? And we don't know. Like I said, we're
Are they
making it up as
paying
we
for
go.
anything? Are they
They're
paying
paying.
for?
Yeah, so I'm asking them to pay for one half of the transportation costs. So I'll cover hotels, meals, shuttles, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
But I'm asking them to do one half of the transportation from where they live to get to Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, because otherwise I can't afford it. But if they can cover one half of it, and so far the response has been positive. Now we'll see when, crunch time comes and they've got to come up with the money whether or not they will actually do it. But that's the plan, is that they'll pay for one half of the transportation. In the city directors in Uganda, I'm going to ask them to take all of the transportation because it doesn't involve any flying. It's all driving. So it won't be that much. And they'll pile a whole bunch of people into the same car. And uh,
For
so,
sure. Yeah.
yeah.
So one time you had talked to I heard you talk about training your the pastors you were working with on budget
Hmm.
um information on, setting up a budget for a church so they can start to get some of the income
Yeah.
and actually, using some for missions and things like that. Are
Hmm.
you working with any of these city or country directors on budgeting? Like,
Well,
so
that's
they
one of
could
the
be
things
sustainable?
yeah,
Hmm.
that's one of the things we're going to hammer at in July with the country directors, and then when we meet with the city directors in Uganda, we're going to hammer that as well. I teach that principle in TLT course number 2, stewardship, on terms of how to construct a budget. And I actually encourage them to have a line item in the budget, which is training of pastors and leaders, so that the church actually is who should pay for the training fee. The church needs to support the training of their pastor and leaders. So I really, now, are they doing it? Well, shoot, half of them don't even have a budget. So, but I'm working on it.
Yeah.
great. Just based on my experience, Tom, I just strongly affirm what you're doing in terms of bringing together key leaders. Um, the one of the first times we did that in my previous ministry, there was a big conference in Bangkok, and we were able to bring a number of our national leaders together, and to see the dynamics between them, where they're feeding off of one another
Yeah.
and reinforcing vision and sharing stories was really encouraging. But the other
Yeah.
thing that happened is all of a sudden I realized they're using the we language. They're not talking
Mm.
about you guys, they're talking about
Yeah.
us. We're in
Yeah.
this. And so the level of ownership had gone really, really deep by bringing them together. And anyway, so I
You know
applaud
what?
what you're doing.
And we just formed a WhatsApp group for this thing, and that I'm getting that. They're all
Hmm,
talking about this experience and this team that we're all a part of, and then
beautiful.
each of the teams of the countries, their team and their country. So, Craig, I appreciate that. I am seeing that happen, and it really is fun to be a part of.
Great, great. All right. Any final questions or thoughts from the group here before we land this plane? All right. Well, let me first of all, Tom, thank you. This has been really, really valuable. I really appreciate you sharing, and appreciate um, your courage and launching out and figuring the stuff out and making mistakes but God is obviously blessing what you're doing, and so I really rejoice in this.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Um,
Tom.
yeah.
Thank you, Richard.
Coming up, let me give you some heads up. Our next, so we've got two things: a T3 Zoom Cafe, that's every other month, and the next one will be the Meekers, Larry and Bago Meeker. They have a very different approach to multiplication, but they've had great success. So that would be July 7, and you'll be getting an email on this. But before then, next month in June 4th, our own Paul Madsen will be part of our webinar series, and he's going to be speaking on lessons I've learned about training leaders. June 4. And, we think of Paul as, oh, he's leading this large growing organization, which of course he is, but he has spent decades training leaders, right? And he's probably one of the most experienced trainers in the entire organization. And so I'll be interviewing him about lessons learned about training leaders. One of the questions I'll be asking him is, if you had to do it over again, what would you
Mm.
do differently? And so anyway, that's you'll want to be there. You'll get an email on
Right.
that as well. And then July 21 to 24, Richard's going to be there. This is and Sandra and Scott are going to be in Flagstaff, Arizona. We're going to spend 4 days immersed in the book of Genesis. And it's going to be a really sweet, rich time. This will be the third summer we've done this, so encourage you to be part of that if at all possible. All right. With that, we will sign off. And again, thank you all for joining us.
Good to
Thank
see you,
you.
everybody. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Thanks,
Thank
Tom.
you.